All right, guys. Up to now, we've talked about HTML. You guys have been working a lot just in HTML. Some of you guys have started jumping into CSS. So let's discuss what CSS is and what it does for us. HTML is really just how we define the structure and its organization of what we want in our website. Okay, it really has very little to do with what it will look like. There are some defaults that you see, some word wrapping when we open up the website just using HTML, but for the most part, everything is really just how we are organizing. CSS is how we are determining what our information is going to look like on the screen. Okay, so there are, it's called cascading style sheets, and I will explain what that means in a little bit. But there are basically three ways that we can implement CSS. So this is different type of code. It's going to have a different format of how we're setting it up, but this allows us to start modifying and customizing what our stuff looks like. We can do inline. So let me show you an example of what inline is. So if I am here at my paragraph, I can write simply style equals, and then put in here in quotes, I could put font size and a colon. So that is my attribute, and then I'm giving it my value, 20 pixels. Okay, and if I am running this code, so let's go ahead and save it, file, save, and I'm going to run this. So this is from my let's open it up, run it, see what it looks like. There is my remarks. Okay, so we don't really see it yet, so let's blow it up. So that's 20 pixels. Let's do 50 pixels and go ahead and save it. And then I'm going to go back here and I'm going to refresh. Okay, huge. All right, now it only did it for that that tag. Okay, and that's because I did it in line. It was in this line that I did it, so it's not applying to anything else in my code. So that's inline. Okay, so let me take that off, and that is useful to a point. The problem is that if I wanted to do that for multiple paragraphs, so I have another section with another paragraph here. This is a paragraph for another section. Okay. If I have multiple paragraphs, the problem is that I would have to literally write that for every single one. And from a coding standpoint, really what you want to have the focus on is you need to have a really good reason why you are being so repetitive and redundant. If I am doing something in line here, and then I have to do it here and here, that is a waste of time for you, and it makes your code not clean. So that is inline. So our other option then is in document, which it means that it's going to apply towards the entire document. And that is where our head comes in, because this is stuff that's just, not displayed, but it is data for us. And I can actually use this, which is a global tag. I can call it style, and I have end style. And inside of that, I can implement any of the code that I want. Okay, now I should add that the format is that there is a selector, And then there's a rule, and the rule could be many different aspects of things that we want to change, but the selector is going to be what we want it to apply to, which this is going to start getting pretty exhaustive, so I'm going to have multiple videos for it. Okay, so let's say we wanted that to apply to all paragraphs. My selector is the tag that I want it to apply to, and this could be a class, an ID, a tag. I can make it any, I could set it up where it could be, a paragraph that's nested inside of a section that I only want it to apply to. So I have a selector, and then I'm going to do some curly brackets, and inside there is going to be my rule. This is my rule. Anything inside of here is what I want to happen to this selector, this tag, okay? So inside there, I want the font size to be, let's say, 40 pixels. Okay, and then I got to finish off with a semicolon. So if I save this, I have multiple paragraphs. If I refresh, we will see that it does that to all of my paragraphs. So see how it's big? It's big, it's big, it's big, it's big. Even my right here, the second time I did the quote, even that is big because it's inside the paragraph. This is in document. It's done inside the head tag, so it needs to be a child of head. I have to have an opening and closing tag of style, and I can change that specific tag for all of my code. So all I really need to do is I need to start going through and I need to start identifying. That is in document. Now, actually the best one, especially when you guys are looking at having something be more responsive. If I'm going to have 4 web pages in my website, so I have, for example, an index.html page, an about.html page, a portfolio or a photo.html page, and a contact.html page. All of those are probably going to share similar design features to each other. So why would I want to do a style for one document, my index.html, knowing that I'm probably going to end up having to do that same type of style in another document? Okay, and that is where I would want to create another file, and I would call this, and this is where it's important that you are saving your stuff in your website folder. So your My Website, that's the project that you are working on. Everything needs to be inside there, all images, all style sheets, everything. So here I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to call it styles.css. Okay. If you guys are having issues being able to open up your web pages or your style sheets, it's because you're not calling it by its full name. If you're creating it, an HTML page, you need to type it with the .html. If you are creating a cascading style sheet, you need to type it with the name .css. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save. Now setting up a style sheet like this, I'm not putting HTML, a doc type at the top because this is the CSS sheet. So I'm really just using a selector, and I have my brackets for my rule, and I can do font size, and I could do 36 pixels, whatever I wanted to do. Now, in order to tie them two together, because right now they are not tied together, okay? They are standing alone. I need to tie them together. That is where the head comes in, and us using a link. So if I use link, and I have to give the relationship, so that's an attribute, and I'm going to say it's a style sheet. Okay, and then I need to give it its hyperlink reference, which is going to be the exact same name. Case is sensitive, so styles.css. Okay, and then I have to finish it off with another caret. So, okay, that's it. Now what's ended up happening is that when I run this code, I'm saying that I have all my styles on this sheet. Go check here and then apply it on this page. That's what happens when everything gets loaded. So I could save all. Oh, that's a non-title. And then I can go back here and I can refresh. So that paragraph, that is a little bit harder to see. So let's do, instead of just giving a size, so a rule does not need to be one thing. It could be multiple things. I can have different pieces on there. I could do something like color, and I'm not going to go through all of the different attributes that you could do. There are so many things on the internet about what types of features. I'm merely focused on you being able to set it up and link it together, finding what different attributes you want to use for your code. You guys are going to have to do some research on that. I will walk through a lot of stuff for not just building up organization, because we kind of did that in HTML, but how to structure it using CSS so that I can have it have my different tags and information where it's displayed on my page how I want it to, and how I can set up different things. So color, we could do a lot of things with color. It does not need to be just a specific color. I could usually you can do like with the actual color, but you could do RGB values, you could do hexadecimal, and it will work. So I go back. All of this stuff that turned blue, that is paragraph stuff. Okay, so these are all paragraph tags right now. Now that is actually though where when I look at my code, where I have stuff like ID and class, because I can give specific information to what I want. If I don't want it to apply to every article, but just one specific one, I can call it by its class or its ID. Okay. Now, cascading style sheets. The reason why I'm mentioning it, cascading style sheets, is because things cascade down. The selectors that I have, anything that is a child of it, that will still be applied unless I override it. So let's just look at the code so we can see. I have a header and an H1. Do I have an H1 anywhere else? I got H2 tags. Okay, so let's do we could leave the paragraph. We have that as that's doing it as blue. So if I have, let's say, another selector, and I'm using my section, so I could have section is my selector, and that's apply a rule. So maybe I want the rule to be green. This will apply to everything that's inside section. However, the paragraph, which could be a child of that section, I could override with the color, but anything else would be green. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So let's refresh. Okay, so now I have my basic title that I had in that section plus the paragraph. Title, paragraph, 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 and even stuff that's out of it. So when I'm looking at that code, here, this is a heading for the first article. That's an H2. That became green, but I overrode paragraph is a child of section. Well, it's a child of article, and that's the child of section. So anything within inside section, any children will get overridden on what they want for their features. So section is supposed to be all green. So this title will be green and the paragraph will be green. However, with my paragraphs, I specifically overrode those so that they would be blue. That's why I end up having those two sets of colors. Okay, so this is a little bit of what we could work with. Using style sheets, I would suggest you guys just jump into style sheets. If I had in my document one specific area that I wanted to override, so maybe I had some special feature on one of my web pages of my website. So I have my index.html, my about, my contact, my photos, and all of them are using the same style sheet. But I have one particular thing that I want to change in just my index. That is where I want to use my inline. So I can still use my links, but then I could use my styles, my style tag inside the head to override some of that stuff. So maybe on index.html, I didn't want all those colors, but for all my other pages, I did. So if I want something to change just for this document, I need to actually call it and override it. And it would override the style sheet stuff applying to this document only. If I wanted to do that for a specific line, so maybe H2 tags, I don't actually want a color. I could override here. And I could say, well, those ones, I don't want it, so I need to give my selector, so H2, and then my rule. I could do color black. Now, if I save this, and you guys will see this once you have multiple documents, but all the H2 links are now staying black. They're no longer green. Okay, so I overrode my style sheet. Now I could do that again. I could go here and I can actually do in here a style, and I could say color and put red. And do it inside of my document so that I could override that particular H2 to have that feature. So let's see what that looks like. File, save, and then I refresh. So I'll have one H2, just this one. I overrode the style sheets, then the inline document because I changed them all back to black. Then I overrode just for that one to put it into red. Okay, we can do this for a lot of things. There are a lot of different options that we can select for what we want to do for our features. Just doing simple color changes, font size, font families, start pulling up the stuff from W3. That's a pretty good resource for finding out the different types of attributes that you could use for CSS. There are hundreds of them. Okay. What I'm focusing on specifically is how you can identify those pieces and then be able to do cool things. So we'll be able to do animations, be able to identify, maybe I only want stuff to change that's paragraphs inside of the main. I can do that. Okay. And we can make those changes and start designing some really cool stuff into our code. All right. So start playing around with that. Set up your CSS sheet in your project folder, the style sheet, and any images. I should probably actually create a separate styles folder and then move my stuff in there. Now, if you did that and you're like, Mr. Walters, my page no longer works. Well, yeah, that's because you're not talking to the right location. So styles is not, because these are all relative links and it's based off of the folder where index or the page that you had was there. So it's looking for styles.css. It does not see it because it's inside a folder. So I need to actually write styles as the folder, and then inside that folder is styles.css. If you do not have your stuff all in that project folder, you're going to start breaking things when you're moving it back and forth. That's kind of why we're using GitHub, so that we can see that stuff is staying in one location. Okay, so if your images were working at home and now they don't, it's because you had your images on your personal computer. You're not talking to that specific folder. You don't have those images in that folder. So you need to move all your stuff that's related to it to the folder, and then make sure that all of that stuff is pushed up